We're going to start with a question from Eric Klein, PhD. That's at Dr. Eric Klein, who apparently has a much higher level of education than I do. Albert, I always enjoy your annual article in January on names to watch as future GMs. That will come out, of course, towards the end of the season. As the season has progressed, are there any particularly hot names to watch? And are there any potential GM head coach pairings we should have on our radar? Yeah, there are. There's a good number of general manager candidates out there, and then there are a few guys that'll be at the top of the list or near the top of the list that are on my radar. And I'm not saying this to exclude anybody, but a few of the names that just are on the top of my mind now. Mike Borgonzi, the assistant general manager in Kansas City, long overdue for a general manager job. Really works in all facets of the operation with general manager Brett Veach, who he essentially came up with under Andy Reid over the first few years of the Reid era in Kansas City. Done a great job helping to put that roster together. And I think Veach and Borgonzi and so many other people there have done a great job of supplementing around Patrick Mahomes. Now, of course, all of this doesn't happen. The 3 Super Bowls in 5 years without Mahomes there, without Andy Reid as the coach. But if you really drill down on it and go beyond just, that core of 3 players that has been so sturdy and reliable and great for them, and Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones, you'll find a lot of really good, solid pros that have made up an excellent defense. You look at that defense, some of the guys that they've been able to draft despite not having high first round picks. Guys like your Trent McDuffie's, your Nick Bolton's, your George Karlaftis's. A lot of really good players who will be up for big contracts here soon. You look at the offensive line, how they drafted to fix the offensive line and going and getting Creed Humphrey, who's already been extended, and Trey Smith, who's up for a contract now. What they've done with some sensible free agent signings, given the constraints that they have from a budget standpoint, going and getting a guy like a Justin Reed to supplement what they have. Bringing in a DeAndre Hopkins in the trade market. So I think Mike Borgonzi is a name that should be at the top of everybody's list going in to the 2025 general manager hiring cycle. John Spytek's another one, in Tampa, did a great job of helping Jason Light build that roster up to a point where it would be attractive to Tom Brady. And now they've built something that's sustainable enough that they're winning without Tom Brady there. They won the division in their first year post Tom Brady. That was 2023. This year, it looks like they're going to be right back in it, even with the injury problems that they have. It's a young roster now. That was an older roster with Brady. It's a young roster now. That's just a really, really good operation there. I think both John Spytek and Mike Greenberg deserve general manager consideration. Spytek, I think, also has the advantage of having, seen what it looked like, what a Tom Brady operation looked like. He worked closely with Brady in the advanced scouting end. So he's another name that I think is a good one to watch. In Detroit, I think Ray Agnew is one that deserves a good long look. He's an ex-player. He's got a really good feel for the way a building works and what goes into putting together a great football operation. He's seen it as a player. Now he's seen it as an executive. He's been Brad Holmes' right-hand man in helping to build the thing up. And he was also with Brad Holmes in Los Angeles. So he's been part of the building process now in 2 places. Again, an ex-player who's worked on the player development side, who's worked on the scouting side, who just has a ton of good applicable experience. And then if we want to look further with Detroit, I think another name to look at would be Lance Newmark, who Adam Peters hired as assistant general manager with the Commanders. He, of course, spent all those years in Detroit, saw the ups, saw the downs, is a scout, and did obviously a great job in helping to build the Lions up. And now, here he is in Washington in year 1, and they're right in the playoff hunt. And then another name would be in Buffalo, Terrence Gray, who's been a rising young executive there. I think he checks a lot of boxes, and he's somebody who, again, was there in building the Bills up. Was integral in the Stephon Diggs trade a few years ago, and has been a huge part of the college scouting process for them in building the roster up to where it is now. And then going through the reset, with so many big names out the door this offseason. your Micah Hyde, your Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. We've been over this before. Your Stephon Diggs, your Mitch Morrises. So, part of the reason why they've been in such a good position to reset, obviously part of it being a huge part of it being Josh Allen, but they've also been able to have guys in the pipeline. So those would be some names from a general manager standpoint that I would look at. And if you're wanting to pair some of those guys with potential head coaching candidates, you can do the obvious connect the dots thing, right? So Terrence Gray's with Joe Brady in Buffalo. Lance Newmark and Ray Agnew have experience. Both of them have experience with both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. Both those guys, I think, are excellent head coaching candidates. Mike Borgonzi goes way back with Brian Flores, all the way to Boston College, I believe. That would be I think a good solid pairing. Borgonzi also was in Kansas City with Mike Vrabel. Vrabel, of course, I think will be out there as, a really good name. Spytech, has experience. He a former Michigan player. Could he be somebody who you'd pair with a Jesse Minter? So I look at a lot of these names. You can make the logical connections there with some of those names. It's going to be a really interesting hiring cycle. I do think they're going to be, a few general manager openings, not as many as the head coaching openings, but there are a lot of really good names. And again, I don't want to leave anybody out, but I think that those are some real good names to kind of get you started as guys who have been waiting, guys who have had to wait their turn. And, there are some retread candidates too that I think are really good, but those would be some first-time GM candidates who have paid their dues, have waited their turn, and now I think are very ready in the same way like an Adam Peters was ready when he took the Washington job, and we saw how that turned out.